All right. Good morning, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us for our webinar. I'm Ashley Limbers, the marketing lead here at Encompass Solutions, and I'm happy to be your moderator for this session. For those of you who are new to Encompass Solutions, let me give you a quick introduction. We are a North Carolina-based ERP consulting and implementation firm with over 24 years of business and a global team of just over 40 staff members. We focus exclusively on serving the manufacturing and distribution industries, delivering solutions that help organizations streamline their operations, overcome challenges, and drive growth. And as a premier partner of Epicor, we have nearly 2 decades of experience delivering tailored ERP solutions. What truly sets Encompass apart is our partner-first mindset. We don't just implement software, we work closely with our clients to ensure their ERP solutions are tailored, optimized, and aligned with their business goals. In today's session, we're going to focus on Epicor Cloud, presented by our knowledgeable speaker, Robert Edson. Before we dive in, just a few housekeeping notes. This webinar is being recorded, and we'll send a copy to all registrants afterwards. And if you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the question box and your Zoom control panel, and we'll answer as many as we can during the live Q&A at the end. And lastly, we'd appreciate it if you could take a minute to fill out the quick survey after today's session. It will help us keep improving these events for you. Now let's turn things over to our presenter. Please join me in welcoming Robert Edson. Robert has 16 years in software sales, and many of those years selling cloud solutions, and 14 of those years have been with Epicor. His roles have included customer account manager and new sales, giving him experience on both sides of the table. Robert's experience in many areas of manufacturing include medical devices, electronics, capital equipment, aerospace and defense, plastics, metal fab, and more. We're excited to have him with us today. So without further ado, let's get started. All right, so we do have a poll question. All right, so if you could go ahead and take this poll question for us. Are you planning on moving your ERP to the cloud? Yes, no, or we are already in the cloud. And then the second question is, what, if any, concerns do you have with moving your ERP to the cloud? So we'll just give you a few seconds here to answer those questions. Are you planning on moving your ERP to the cloud? And if you have any concerns, what are those? And just a few more seconds here. All right, thank you to those who took the poll. Let's see the results. So it looks like Robert, 33% of the attendees today are planning on moving their ERP to the cloud, and 67% are not planning on moving their ERP to the cloud. And then, let's see here. The concerns with moving to the cloud are security for Gov DoD contractors, maybe in early 2026, and will their customizations and ability to provide support. So lots of concerns with moving to the cloud, for sure.
All right. Well, thank you, Ashley, for the introductions, and thank you to the audience for the poll responses. The insight is certainly helpful. We're going to talk a little bit today about Epicor Cloud Solutions, and I'm just going to start with some basic overview about what it is and essentially what it isn't. Epicor Cloud is not a new piece of software. It's all the great functionality we have seen from Epicor over the years. It's just deployed in Microsoft Azure. I do mention this because some companies do have differences between their on-prem and cloud solutions. So I think for the audience on the phone today, we have some prospects that maybe are looking at Epicor for the first time. Just know that again, this is the next iteration of Epicor ERP, right? We didn't create something new and deploy it in the cloud. And then same for customers, right? The migration path to get to the cloud is fairly seamless, and we'll be certainly talking about that in a bit more depth today. And as you can see, Epicor Cloud offers the full spectrum of business functionality, kind of shown on this pinwheel here on the right-hand side. You're not giving up any functionality, certainly by moving to Epicor in the cloud. In fact, you could potentially be gaining some functionality, which we'll certainly be discussing here in some later slides. So I want to start with talking a little bit about how cloud is deployed. I will start with saying that not all cloud solutions are created equally. I'll start with on top of Microsoft Azure infrastructure is where Epicor deploys the ERP applications. There are several methods that you may or may not be familiar with about cloud deployments, which are referred to as single tenant, dedicated tenant, or public cloud. And then we also have multi-tenant. So starting at the top here, the top one is single tenant, where everything is isolated. So each customer has their own database. They have their own hardware, right? So their own servers within a data center somewhere that the provider manages. The benefit of this method is that you have a complete segregation of all of the resources, but the downside is that this can be extremely expensive. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, and on the bottom here, we've got multi-tenancy. And this is where a company provides a service and the infrastructure layer, again, the physical servers, and those are shared across multiple companies, as is the application and the database. So in contrast to single tenant, the cost is distributed across multiple different companies. So this is providing a much lower cost to the consumer at the end of the day because everyone shares those same resources. Now, the downside for multi-tenancy is that it's far less configurable, and there certainly can be some reliability issues where you maybe can kind of bump into each other, company A, B, and C, as you can see on the bottom. So for this reason, in the middle there, Epicor took the approach of dedicated tenancy, also called public cloud. So this leverages a shared infrastructure across multiple different companies, which allows for a much lower cost. However, Epicor chose to use dedicated tenants. So what this means is each customer has their own instance and their own database. So there is zero impact based on what one customer may do to another customer at any time because that data is segregated. So this gives our customers essentially the best of both worlds. Truly lower cost, but data segregation at the same time. So Epicor has over 600 customers that agree and like this model, and this number, certainly continues to grow every day. So as we now know, Kinetic in the cloud runs on Microsoft Azure. So we leverage Microsoft's robust redundancy, replication, and recovery strategy so you can focus on growing your business in a secure and reliable ERP. So Kinetic and Azure can support customers throughout the world with data centers in many countries. When moving to Kinetic Cloud, a data center is determined based on geography with obvious intention to reduce any potential latency. So Epicor provides a tool, you can kind of see it on the bottom left-hand side of the screen there, for customers to view Epicor Cloud status at status.epicor.com. So this is staffed by the Epicor Cloud Reliability Center, and that is 24/7, and is your go-to site for cloud system notifications. So as a subscriber, you can sign up for timely email and RSS feed alerts when there is anything impacting your system, from planned maintenance, a major upgrade, post-upgrade all clear notifications, or even in the rare event of a service issue, you would be notified through this platform. So again, once you sign up, you'll receive alerts with timely updates and notifications. So Epicor Kinetic ERP Cloud Services. I wanted just to give a brief overview of all of the things that are included. I would say kind of out of the box, not from a functionality standpoint, but more from the service side of things with Kinetic in the cloud. So on the left-hand side, you're going to see kind of all those check marks here, and I'll run through them. Um, but certainly you're getting Epicor ERP Kinetic deployed in Microsoft Azure. You're also getting multi-factor authentication. You get two environments, production and pilot environments, and then that third environment is truly kind of an education environment for training and education purposes. Um, you can also get on-demand pilot data refresh. You will get disaster recovery, specifically in those regions. You get daily backups that are retained for 30 days. High availability, 99.7%. And again, that is through our SLA, which is our service level agreements, and those are contractual agreements at 99.7% uptime. You'll receive automatic monthly updates, and you'll certainly receive upgrades on a written cadence, which we will discuss here on a later slide. Epicor Kinetic also has access to REST API. So for all of your connectivity or integration needs, some other functions too, Epicor functions, really allowing the environment to do some fun things for your company, along with Application Studio, which we can talk about here in a future slide as well. Alongside that, 24/7 security monitoring and 24/7 essential support plan. I want to touch just briefly as well on some of the potential optional cloud services, and we'll be getting into this in a little bit later slide as well. But the ability to add additional environments is very common for companies to take it outside of their production and pilot environments and create a third, fourth, and sometimes even fifth environments or more where you can do testing. We also offer a flex option, being that you're going to be on a cadence for upgrades and updates. The flex option essentially allows you to defer those annual upgrades for an additional 90 days. We have a production environment copy for data access. So this is a read-only environment. And a lot of folks, it's a near real-time copy of the production environment and allows you to tie in maybe from a reporting standpoint. You can also do one-time data downloads. Somebody mentioned earlier through the poll, and again, we'll talk about this on a future slide as well, but we do offer the GovCloud option. So again, if you're concerned with security, maybe it's a given industry or market, aerospace defense that you're working in, that does comply with all US ITAR regulations. We also offer pro support and the full Epicor security suite. I guess jumping back real quick, I thought I would mention we won't talk too much about pricing on today's call because obviously that might be kind of unique to each opportunity that we're working with. But it is offered in both monthly, quarterly, or an annual cost. But the greatest part is that it's kind of rolled all into one easy and predictable payment. So to talk a little bit about the cloud cadence, upgrades and updates, this is one of the biggest benefits of a cloud offering is being able to stay up to date with the latest and greatest releases of the product. So this prevents you from falling behind on different versions. I think Ashley had mentioned earlier that I'm the customer account manager here at Encompass. So I work with our customers every single day. And this is one of the ways that they're able to stay up to date with the latest and greatest that Epicor has to offer. We do understand that change can be challenging. Therefore, we give you an ample amount of time to test the updates along with having potentially the flex upgrade as an option mentioned certainly in the previous slide. But I do want to talk a little bit about just kind of our expected cadence for customers moving to the cloud, because this is a change, right, from being on-premise. So every 6 months, roughly, Epicor will introduce a major upgrade. You do again have the option to defer that with the flex option, but this allows you guys to stay current with every release. And what this offers is you get 30 days or potentially more to test your pilot environment to be prepared for that upgrade. As far as minor updates, those are happening roughly once every month, and these can be quality enhancements, but these are certainly designed, not to be disruptive, and there is no need to do any testing on those minor updates. And then also is just kind of our routine scheduled maintenance that's happening. So these are happening every month, certainly performed by Epicor, to update things like security, performance, and potentially the scale of the environment. So again, this is all shared with the customer base through that status.epicor.com. So you're very ahead of any upgrades or updates that are coming, and then certainly Epicor will share any potential release notes tied to those cadences. Okay, so talking a little bit about security and best practices. So again, another one of the poll answers, and a very common one, right, is am I safer, am I more secure in the cloud? And I think for most organizations, the answer would be yes. So Epicor breaks down their security into essentially three buckets that I'll work through on this slide. First is infrastructure and operations. So within the Azure regions, they do have Azure DDoS protection. So this is a service designated to safeguard the applications that are hosted on Azure from, again, DDoS attacks, which is distributed denial of service. So these attacks are aiming to exhaust an application's resources, making it unavailable to legitimate users. So Epicor has what's called always-on traffic monitoring. So it's continuously monitoring the application traffic patterns, and that's 24/7, looking for indicators of any potential DDoS attacks. So I guess once an attack is detected, it is instantly and automatically mitigated. So they also have an IT service management system. So this is helping them track any required changes or patch management, and that's both for the product and at that system level. And then they're also tracking any incidents, any problems, and any tasks associated to that through the infrastructure and operations. And then also products and hosts are protected with firewalls, host-based instruction protection systems, and then certainly anti-malware. Talking a little bit about remote access and validation. So they do have access controls. So they have least privilege access as well as MFA, which is multi-factor authentication. They're routinely doing penetration and vulnerability tests to find out if there's any weaknesses in the environment. And then we also talked earlier too about ITAR and GovCloud, and then we also have a life sciences option as well, which we'll talk about on a later slide. But really restricting access, right, to only US citizens if you're in that GovCloud offering. And then certainly annual audits with SOC and ISO. So they do have SOC 1 Type 2, SOC 2 Type 2, and then ISO 27001. So again, those are reports that are available if needed. Now on the application side of things, they're constantly looking at the application logging and monitoring. So encryption is in play with TLS 1.2 encryption, and that would be, from environment to data center, and then it's also encrypted by SSC when it's at rest. As far as communications from outside of Epicor, we could be using ODBC, but most folks are using RESTful APIs to make any sort of integrations. Okay. So I wanted to share this slide because I do think it's fairly impactful on where the burden lives today for somebody who's on-prem versus somebody who might be looking at the cloud. So this is certainly a major value driver for folks that are looking at the cloud. So if we look at the right-hand side, that you can see that by all of those green boxes, right? This is something that is on the shoulders of the customer or potentially your IT department or you're paying for that IT provider that you contract with to support the entire environment, top to bottom, right? So in the cloud, that burden certainly shifts to Epicor, and you'll see that here in the left column. This allows your staff to provide more value-added work for the team, like better dashboards, better reporting, reviewing new modules, or things that could benefit the business versus just managing infrastructure. And I think this is a great representation of why a lot of people are looking to move to the cloud, and that's really to reduce that IT burden and certainly potential risk. So let's talk a little bit more about why people are moving to the cloud. And there certainly are a lot of different reasons on why people move to the cloud, and this is going to be different for every company. And certainly the timing of when you're doing this. But these are some of the big heavy hitters on what we see on a daily basis and why our customers and prospects are looking to move to Epicor Cloud. So the biggest, and I think the most obvious certainly, is to avoid hardware cost and risks. Um, I think we all know that hardware is expensive. Hardware has a shelf life, right? You're replacing this every 5, 6, 7 years. It certainly takes people to run that hardware and that infrastructure. And again, when you move to the cloud, right, you can eliminate all of that internal ERP infrastructure as far as hardware. So just gonna kind of remove that conversation from the equation. Another large one is to stay current and get current, right, with current releases. It's far too common where companies do tend to fall behind from version to version. Being in Epicor Cloud allows you to take advantage of all of the latest and greatest. And again, that burden gets placed on Epicor largely for the upgrades and the updates. Industry regulation. This is a big one. Epicor can certainly help companies meet potential industry regulations. You know, SOC 2, CMMC, NIST, 170, ITAR. We do have some life sciences options as well, but again, getting it into a very safe environment is something that we can certainly assist you with as well. Access to new technology. We're going to talk about this in a later slide, but I will say that there are things coming out in Epicor today that are only available for our cloud customers. That is happening. So we expect to see more of that obviously in the future. So we'll talk a little bit about what some of that functionality is. Data security and cyber attacks. A lot of companies are moving to the cloud because in most cases, what Microsoft Azure partnered, with Epicor from a security standpoint, in most cases, maybe not all cases, but it's probably far more secure than a server that's going to sit within your four walls. So I think there's some major benefits from a data security standpoint that people are evaluating on why they may choose to move to the cloud. Limited IT resources. Again, maybe you just don't have the IT bandwidth. Maybe it's a budgetary constraint where you don't want to bring on an IT person to help manage your environment. If that sounds familiar, you're probably a great candidate to take a look at the cloud. Remote work. Again, since COVID, I think we've all adjusted very well to remote work. And Cloud ERP will help you accomplish that. And as long as you have an internet connection and a browser, you have access to Epicor Kinetic. Making better use of your data. So again, this kind of ties back to access to technology and features and functionality and just being able to stay up to date with the latest and greatest versions of the system. Another big one as well is expansion goals. We found through different studies, which I'll share, that being in the cloud does make it quite a bit easier to roll out additional organizations underneath a potential corporate umbrella, right? It reduces the amount of time to stand that organization up because there's just less to do up front as far as configuring, setting up hardware, SQL, things along those natures. And certainly last but not least, business continuity. So don't just hear it from us. I thought I would share some studies from some outside resources. The Epicor Industry Insights report surveyed 1,350 technology decision makers and found 95% of businesses are overall comfortable with cloud-based business solutions. In fact, 97% of enterprise businesses are mostly or all in the cloud. Even in our personal lives, we see cloud every day, right? Whether it's banking, social media, education, streaming services, connecting remotely like we are here today. We're certainly comfortable with that in our daily lives. So I guess I always ask the question, why not your ERP solution? So again, something to consider there. I want to talk a little bit about the power of cloud. So again, another study done by analyst Forrester. And what they did is they interviewed four growing cloud customers, and they had multifaceted implementations of Epicor Kinetic. They uncovered a long list of quantifiable benefits of moving to the cloud. Net revenue improvements of 6.6% by year five, and this was due to operations efficiencies. Faster time to revenue, with kinetic deployment reducing time by 20%. So again, this kind of talks about eliminating the initial steps of having to, purchase hardware, set hardware up, configure hardware, manage all of your security. Gross margin increase by as much as 1.9% through improved cost efficiencies and improve the net productivity of business users by 20% and the net productivity of the ERP support team by 40%. And that was actually by year three. And there was a significant cost savings from reducing or retiring those legacy platforms. So again, if this is a study that you might be interested in kind of reading the entirety of, we would certainly be happy to share that with you. All right, let's talk a little bit about some new functionality. So again, Epicor Prism is another big reason why customers are starting to look at and move to the cloud. So this is only offered for our cloud customers, but Epicor Prism is a network of AI agents that utilize the power of LLM services, and LLM is a large language model. The components of Epicor Prism are called agents. So these agents align to a specific task that the user is asking Prism to complete. So a user can prompt may activate a single or potentially multiple agents to produce the desired outcome. So the user does not have to know which agent to use. Prism will do that for them. So again, only available to Epicor's cloud customers today. And again, we're going to be seeing more of this as we move into the future with additional functionality. But I wanted to share just kind of some of the quick use cases that we're seeing with Prism and some of the agents that are available today. So the multimodal agent is where you could enter an image, within Prism and ask questions about that image. And it would be leveraging that large language model, right? So it could answer questions or maybe what's wrong with the potential image. And that image could be of a product that you sell that came back from a customer, as an example. The knowledge agent has been a big one, right? This helps answer questions on how to do certain things within Epicor Kinetic. The Kinetic API filter, this allows you to filter lists to only records from a customer, Jensen, for a year, as an example. The Kinetic list query, maybe you're going to find purchase orders for steel greater than 10,000 in the last 2 years. So previously, this would have been, somebody creating a query, right? And maybe connecting the fields on the back end to produce a dashboard. Well, today, you can potentially just ask Prism to generate that list for you. And again, the kinetic summary metric, given a summary metric question like how many orders are open right now. So again, some of that quick actionable information that you need at your fingertips is where our customers are starting to use Prism to get those answers. All right. Again, another piece of insight here from outside sources. So analysts have taken notice of Epicor's investment in our customers and the cloud platforms that enable you guys to grow. Epicor is proud to be recognized as a leader among ERP vendors by Gartner for the second consecutive year due to their industry expertise and focus on solutions that are made with and for our customers. So they're also recognized for their agility and consistent delivery for the customers that we're serving. So to kind of explain the magic quadrant here is on the bottom, we have what's called visionaries. And then on the left-hand side, we have the ability to execute, right? So the goal is to be in that upper right-hand quadrant, and Epicor has been living in that quadrant again for quite some time. So again, offering things like Prism, right, and being on the leading edge for our customer base, but also having the ability to execute that functionality, meaning that it works, right, and meaning that it's deployed and customers are happily using our solutions. So talking a little bit about evaluating long-term costs in TCO, cloud versus on-prem. Again, as a customer account manager here at Encompass, I have these conversations almost every day. And I will find that in most cases, we are seeing that a 5-year TCO, we put all of the numbers down on paper, we are truly finding that cloud has a better TCO over 5 years than on-prem. And it only gets even better, right, as the years go on, right? Because you're eliminating those license costs, you're eliminating hardware costs, you maybe are reducing any IT costs. And again, all of that rolled into Epicor's cloud solutions. Now, I will say another kind of major driver for folks is when you are looking at on-prem, traditionally it's a CapEx, right? It's a big capital expenditure that you're having to budget for. Where when you're moving to the cloud, that thought process can be shifted to more of an operational expense. So again, predictable, ongoing contractual costs that you're going to see can make it easier for companies to move to the cloud. So I want to talk a little bit about the cloud service bundles. So we have Select, Signature, and Enterprise. So what this is Select is a basic cloud service, and that's for both small, medium, and large customers with potential add-ons available, which we'll talk about here at a later slide. There's Signature, which is basically a pre-selected mixture of some of the more popular cloud services, and there is a reduced rate for that. And Enterprise. So Enterprise is essentially our premier cloud experience, and this is for global customers that need the ultimate control, flexibility, and potential scale. So, we're probably talking about users of 150 or more. So with Select, you're certainly going to be hosted in Microsoft Azure. You get the production pilot and those education environments. Again, that 99.7 SLA commitment, disaster recovery, those daily backups, the monthly updates, the cadence for twice a year upgrades, and that comes with our essential support plan. So Signature is everything that we just talked about in Select, but it comes with some additional test environments in a premium pilot extension. You get more data access and you get some what we call a read-only database. It does also include that flex option that we talked about, so allowing you guys to extend your upgrades for an additional 90 days. And then Enterprise, again, is for our large kind of global organizations, but this really does give you a lot more control when it's in a private Azure infrastructure with additional storage, the ability to easily scale that infrastructure, and there's certainly a little bit more control around the upgrade cadence. You can defer those out much longer. And then it also comes with our Pro support plan. I'm going to talk about that here real quickly on the major difference between kind of the standard public cloud, which is, I would say maybe 95% would fall into that bucket, but we also have that 5% right that might land in that enterprise cloud offering. But again, the major differences are the ability to expand any of your processing power needs, largely at will with Epicor, automatic data center routing, and that's to reduce certainly latency, considering that you may be a global organization. And then you get even more flexibility with the upgrade cadence. And then again, that pro support is included. So there are some large differences between standard and enterprise cloud. So if you're a customer on the phone right now or on the webcast, you might be asking yourself, how do we get to the cloud? Well, we do this with our Ascend program. It was formerly known as Cirrus. So Ascend is a cloud migration program for our on-premise customers, but it's built on a proven methodology that combines best practices, some advanced tooling, and services to simplify and automate the process. So Epicor and Encompass will guide you through the complete cloud migration process, from scoping your project to onboarding users, essentially reducing time and costs. So Ascend basically has kind of two main phases that are covered in the program. The first phase includes running the ERP analyzer tool, and essentially this is to scope the cloud migration project, and this is a no-cost tool. So if you guys have not ran the analyzer, please get in touch with your customer account manager and let's take a look at that. What that does is it takes a comb of your entire database and it shows us things like all of your assets, where your customizations are, where your integrations live. And what that does is it kind of grades those customizations and tells us where there might be any potential work for a cloud migration. So again, it kind of gives us a nice baseline to help build this Ascend program around for you. The second part, the second phase, I should say, starts, once you do sign the statement of work and kicks off the cloud migration process. But we can certainly work with you folks to help your journey in the cloud. So as far as cloud migration expertise and experience, the Ascend and Cirrus program has been going for 8+ years. We've migrated 450 plus customers since 2017, and 3,000 plus customers that have ran the analyzer and have shown interest in the cloud today. So again, if there's any interest to see what your current environment might look like in the cloud, let's help you run that analyzer. We can help answer some of those questions for you. All right. Some of the optional cloud solutions that I would like to just revisit that we talked about earlier. Again, adding additional environments certainly does give you the most flexibility. So if you're doing any testing, working on any integrations, those can be done in a third or a fourth environment that will not impact your live or your production environment. A flex option is probably one of our most popular add-ons for customers moving to Kinetic in the cloud. And again, this just gives you a little bit more time to defer those upgrades, a little bit more flexibility there. And the read-only database, again, takes a near live copy of your production environment and allows you guys to maybe do some reporting off of it. And then also one-time data downloads which is downloading your data from the cloud for your own local storage if you're looking to have kind of a local backup there. Okay, so we can also be your compliance partner. So I've mentioned this a few times throughout the presentation today, but if you are in some of those more stringent industries like medical device, aerospace and defense, or if you find yourself, working on government contracts, or if ITAR is a requirement for you, we have a solution. So again, Epicor Kinetic can live in Azure's GovCloud, and this absolutely will comply with all US ITAR regulations in a very secure instance of Azure in GovCloud. Also with life sciences. So again, very common for medical device, pharmaceutical companies, but Epicor can also provide the strict access, but on top of that, provides the IQ, which is the installation qualification documents to assist with your validation process. Okay, one of the newer features that Epicor has released is to give our customers a little bit more control of the environments. So this is all being done in Epicor's cloud management portal. And really what this is a self-service tooling through the Epicor Cloud Management Portal, the CMP, has been rolled out to most of our public cloud data centers, but gives you greater control, flexibility, and efficiency with your Kinetic application. So, assuming you have the security and the rights to do this, but you can perform tasks immediately rather than waiting, for Epicor or Epicor to do these tasks. So some of these things could be like starting and stopping and restarting the site, starting and stopping the task agents, refreshing the databases, and doing a full data model regen. So again, these were activities that needed to be done through Epicare, but now can be done at your fingertips through the cloud management portal. And I want to talk just briefly here about support. So we do have kind of our standard support, and then which is our essential support, and then also our pro support. I just want to call out some of the major differences between the two. With pro support, you're going to have faster response times. The hours of availability are expanded. You do get priority queuing. You can get senior level support. And it does kind of take a follow the sun type of model with access to global support centers. You can ask for support management meetings upon request, and customers are also offered a kind of specialized support dashboard. So again, a few different levels of support that's available for Kinetic in the cloud today. So again, that wraps it up for me. I wanted to thank everybody for joining today, and I hope you found the cloud session today valuable.
Thank you, Robert. That was great. We'll go ahead and take a few minutes to answer your questions. Just a quick reminder, if you haven't already, please type your questions into the Q&A box in your Zoom control panel. So it looks like we do have quite a few questions that came in. So our first question is, what is the turnaround time for a data refresh of a pilot environment?
I don't know off the top of my head, but I will, if we can take that question down,
Yep.
we will certainly get an answer for that. That's accurate.
Yep, we certainly will. And then next question, how do customers implement ECM and Bartender with the Epicor Cloud?
So ECM is a SaaS solution, and Bartender is going to sit locally on your machine. But there is subscription-based pricing that we can do for Bartender, but that would live locally on your machine and talk to Kinetic.
Okay. Next question, what is Kinetic Americas versus Kinetic Private Cloud Americas? Do we know? think it might have been back on one of the slides.
Well, the private cloud is the enterprise level cloud, and the public cloud is going to be just your traditional Azure Americas. I think maybe that answers the question.
Yeah, that was the question. All right, next question. Typically in a year, how many hours will Epicor production be unavailable?
Again, I would have to get those specific statistics, but their SLA commitment is 99.7%. And again, that is through their service level agreement. Now, I will say there is planned downtime, right, for maintenance, but generally they're doing that in windows where they see the least amount of activity on the servers. So you're going to find that traditionally it's like on the weekends and it's later in the hours on the weekends. So, but in most cases, it's not down.
Okay. And then next question, does the cloud support third-party credit card processors?
I believe it does, and we would have to get a list for you of which processors.
Yeah, we can send a follow-up email with that information as well.
Yep.
All right. Next question, what kinds of customizations can we do in Epicor Cloud?
Yeah, I don't think there's much restriction really with customizations, but I would say that with Application Studio, there's a lot of things that maybe used to be customizations that no longer need to be. But I think what we would want to do if there are some specific use cases is maybe take a look at those. But adding fields, changing verbiage, things like that can all be done through Application Studio. But again, we can also completely change a screen if you'd like that as well. So there's quite a few options there.
Right. It looks like we have answered all of the questions for now. Robert, is there anything else that you'd like to add before we wrap up today?
Nope, just want to thank everybody for attending. And if you have any questions, certainly don't be shy. And hope you found the session valuable.